Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for another episode of the Steelers Preview. Joined as always, a little bit later than usual, but that's okay. Our podcast producer, Bryan Anthony Davis. What's going on, Bryan?
Not too much, and congratulations, but I prefer to call you senior editor.
Ah, yes. I'll take it. I'll take that. Yeah, definitely. The editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, Dave Schofield. What's up, David?
Senor. El Senor. Jefferson. Okay, sorry. That sounded, I think I just mixed accents. Wow. What a day. That's all I have to say.
I mean, there's not much to talk about. I'm really not sure. We're going to have to really scrape the bottom of the barrel here. No, there's a ton to talk about. I wanted to start with going what happened first today, but we're going to push that back. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's start with the biggest news. The biggest news of the day was that David DeCastro was released by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and everyone was like, what's going on? I have my own thoughts on this. He did talk with, I think, Joe Starkey of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And Bryan, did you read that article by chance?
I read the tweets, and I also listened to Joe on The Fan. So I was not able to catch his show today. I think Joe's fantastic, actually. But, I kind of believe it. He has a great relationship. He has had David DeCastro and Villanueva live in studio before. So has a pretty good relationship with them. So I feel it's pretty valid that DeCastro was tweeting him.
Well, and basically from the crux of what I read is that Joe interviewed Dave, and David DeCastro said he does have to have another surgery on his ankle, and that he's not sure if he's going to be able to play again, but he said he would be fine if he, quote unquote, called it a day, meaning called it a career. So, Dave, I want to throw it over to you. What do you think is going to happen with David DeCastro first? Let's not talk about, we'll get to the implications on the Steelers' offensive line and things like that. But what do you think happens with David DeCastro here in the coming weeks or months?
It's very interesting because it really depends on what the story is leading up to it. If it really is the whole notion of, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to play again, then I think he will hang it up because that was the right move by the Steelers. Because, if he doesn't know if he's going to play anymore, you can't sign him to an extension. And if he doesn't know that if he's going to need another surgery, he doesn't even know if he's going to play this year, you don't want to put him on IR and continue to have that huge cap hit when you don't have, when you're probably going to be done with him after this year anyway. I think it came down to the whole idea of, is he going to be healthy enough to play? And they didn't think he is. So therefore, the fact that the Steelers are like, thank you for your service and everything and putting that out there makes me think that this was a big discussion between the two, that maybe DeCastro is like, I'm not going to be good to play this year, but I think I'm going to retire, but I'm not 100% sure yet. And the Steelers needed to move on, that's what they had to do. They either had to move on or get stuck with it.
Yeah. Bryan, what's your take on where does DeCastro go from here? Do you think he plays again, or do you think he hangs it up?
Well, I don't think he will see the field at all in 2021, and that's what the Steelers found out from what I understand, what I believe in my own head, just talking to David DeCastro, with him not talking to the media last week, with all the smoke that turned into fire that I poo-pooed and said, DeCastro, it's nothing to worry about. I said that. Boy, was I wrong. But they knew something, and it's almost a show of respect between player and team and player by saying, look, I'm not going to retire because I might want to come back, but if you go ahead and release me, things will work out, and then you could be free of me because I don't know if I'll ever be back again. So that's kind of to me, I kind of like that move by both sides. There's no anger in this situation. They were having talks last week in minicamp. It was I wouldn't be surprised if this was something that they were waiting to see how it played out, and maybe second opinions, maybe there were doctor's appointments. All I know that what we were thinking last week when there was a free agent visit, then we realized that, hey, you know what? He wasn't talking to the media all week. He wasn't active. He was the only one, and everyone was thinking, oh, he's mad. He doesn't care about football. No, He obviously cared about football for being in the facility, for giving the Steelers respect to be there by showing up, and they were able to have conversations most likely.
Yeah, what a weird situation. I talked about it extensively on my live podcast Tuesday night about how he showed up once at mini camp and he never was interviewed and didn't even participate in anything, not even individual drills. It was just weird. And then when Trey Turner visited on Friday, that's when a bunch of red flags went up. And I'm thinking to myself, DeCastro is not coming back, and they're doing their diligence. So let's talk about who they got. So I didn't expect this to happen the same day, but yet here we are. I wrote an entire article about guards that are available. It's supposed to run tomorrow at 7:00 in the morning on Friday, and that's going to be deleted now. I might still run it and just give a list and just eliminate Trai Turner and say, like, here are some players that are still out there in case you want to keep adding guards. I don't know.
In case they want to have competition. There you go.
Yeah.
Just change it,
exactly.
Jeff. There you got it.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway,
then the live chat will be the live chat, they'll yell at you. They'll be like, Hartman, you idiot. They just signed Trey Turner.
Oh, yeah. The comment section will be fantastic. So Trey Turner comes to the Steelers. I don't know much about him. Dave kind of filled me in a little bit. Dave, go ahead and tell us what you know about Trey Turner, because I'm sure there's other fans out there that are like me. They're like, I don't even know who this guy is.
Okay. Well, Bryan was asking me before we came on live, before Jeff was ready to roll. And I'll try to give you as short of an answer as I gave him, but I'm actually working on something for the website for tomorrow about how Trey Turner and David DeCastro had very similar narratives, basically fan narratives about them coming into this season. Trey Turner didn't have a team. He was released from the Chargers. He got traded to the Chargers. We don't know. He missed 7 out of the first 8 games, and then he was not good. He was, out of all the players that had enough snaps to count by Pro Football Focus, he was the second to worst guard, and he was by far the worst run blocking guard. That's what they had. But so he obviously was not the 5 straight Pro Bowler that he was. Yes, it could have been change of scenery, but it really was about the injury. DeCastro had a very similar narrative too, that even though he made the Pro Bowl last year, a lot of Steeler fans were scratching their head about that because they knew he was not having a great year. And for both players, it's kind of like if they could get back, if they could get healthy and get back to playing how they played before 2020, then you've got a great player. That's what Steelers Nation was hoping that they had in David DeCastro. Now we find out our hopes and dreams were dashed this afternoon. You could have a very similar story with Turner, but at least he was available. It seems like he would have been able to participate at minicamp had he had already been signed by then, something of that nature. So it's very similar. He's never been all pro like DeCastro, but I mean, he was 5 straight years the Pro Bowl with the Panthers. So there's potential there, but you've got to get back to that potential, just like we were hoping to get back to that same type of player DeCastro was before last year.
And before I throw it to Bryan, I want to say, if anyone out there is thinking that they're going to be able to sign someone that is still a street free agent that wasn't just recently released, which has not happened, and it's past mandatory minicamp, and they're going to find someone that's this guy's going to be perfect. It doesn't exist. It just does not exist right now. That everyone else that's worth a contract is under contract. But I want to throw this to Bryan because he's a numbers guy, and Matty Peverill from Down Under, one of our Touchdown Under guys, gives us $2.99 dingo dollar. What is that? Is it cents? I don't even know what it's called. Anyways, what is Trey Turner's number going to be? We know number 70 is retired. So Bryan, what number do you think Trey Turner will get?
This is in your wheelhouse, man.
It is.
You know what? I have not even had a chance to think about it. Right off the bat, I could see something like 78. I don't know what else is available right now. It's not going to be 66, and there's a lot of numbers there that aren't available. You've got 90 guys in camp right now. It might be a number that it just might be a number right now, and that number changes on September 12th. I mean, that's something that they might look at. I'm really not concerned about that. I haven't looked at the roster to see what's available yet, But I mean, 78 jumps out at me. If 73 is available, and I don't think it is. No, Carlos has 73.
71. Did anyone take Filer's old number?
That's Joe Haig.
Joe Haig 71.
They're the only number in the 70s that's available is 78.
So it could be a 63. You know, I mean, it could be something like that. But that's
63 and 64 are both available.
I love me some Matty P, but Matty, thanks for giving us the dingo dollars to talk about nothing.
Well, let's go to this one. Monster 19 gives us $4.99. It's American currency. Says, thanks for the coverage, guys. Y'all get me through the workday. I, on behalf of all of our Behind the Steel Curtain podcasters, whether it's live on YouTube or audio only, say thank you to all the listeners. If we didn't have the people in the live chat right now at 10:15 East Coast time to want to talk about Trey Turner and want to hear talk about David DeCastro being released, you all energize us too. So by all means, thank you for the tip. We appreciate you all as well. Okay, so let's talk about the gaping hole that was left with David DeCastro left, and what are the options? So Trey Turner was signed. I don't know what side he normally played on, whether it was right or left.
Right.
So he was normally right. So you would think you take the veteran, keep him there. You keep Dotson on the left. What are your all's thoughts about the offensive line, the way we're shaping up right now? Dave, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm going to kind of do this to kind of answer. I was trying to type in the live chat, but that's so hard to do when the show starts. So I said something kind of really brief to Andrew Wilbar. I'm sorry that I didn't explain better, but he said, I wish they would have just waited till roster cut downs. They could have probably got someone better. I think that's not the right move at all. You need somebody that's going to be there through training camp. You have to have somebody through training camp. So I think this is a much better move to grab him now. It's really going to come down to what the salary ends up being. There's already some speculation that when the Steelers sign guys to 1-year contracts, it's generally for like that minimum amount. That anything more than that, they generally do 2 years and then, load the second year that they could get out of it as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But they needed this because also think about, how many starts do these guys really have on the offensive line right now? When you add them all up, that's a good numbers thing that I probably need to.
Depends on who. Well, it depends on who your center is.
I'm not even talking about starters. I'm just talking about all the options every option that they have. I mean, so to me, do you really want? I mean, granted, you like to have guys that have been around there and been in the room, but at least you have someone that has the potential and has the, I don't really say hardware, but accolades in the past that could come in and at least try to be the guy. And then if they found out that he's not working out and it's not a big deal, then you look for other guys at roster cutdowns. So now I got to get back to the exact question you asked, which I can't remember because I guess Seattle has 2 losses. I don't know.
Just know it was what exactly are you expecting from the Steelers offensive line this year? I mean, it's uncertain at almost every spot.
I mean, it's become a bigger question mark because I was talking about those similar narratives. David DeCastro was a known to Steelers fans, been here since 2012 and everything. You knew what you had in DeCastro, so therefore you were a little bit more, well, if he's healthy, we should be all right. Trey Turner's an unknown to most Steeler fans, even if you've watched him other places. He's not part of the history yet. So therefore, you're not going to be maybe as optimistic that he's going to possibly work out. Maybe you are. But the state of this line is, I think they at least put something in place that seems to have similar, not quite as, I mean, we should stop talking about trying to replace David DeCastro, just like with Marquise Pouncey. Those guys were great Steelers. I mean, we're not talking about that, but just the show must go on, next man up. You've got to have a right guard in there. So at least they did something with someone who could possibly fill it out, and we'll see how it works through the preseason.
All right, Bryan, your shot at this question. What do you think about the Steelers offensive line heading into the season?
It's in disarray right now. It really is. The Coward signing, The Trey Turner signing right now is the best you can do at this point, and you cannot critique this. This is not a desperate sign. This is something they've been in contact with him over probably close to 7 days now. They've had a week to think about it. What would you want? Would you rather have the Steelers not bring this guy in and kick the tires on him and go with the Hags and the Cowards, those guys? Would you rather that and have those guys, but you have pedigree in this guy? You have a guy that has 5 Pro Bowls, that has done enough to go ahead and have those accolades. Okay, he was traded, then he was cut. I get all that. But you have an offensive line right now that you're just putting pieces together and you're hoping it fits. You have Rashad Coward backing him up. He's probably going to fight for a job here. Nobody's excited about that. You have a question mark in a knee at right tackle, someone I think is very good in Zach Banner, but that's scary. You're either going with short arms and a skinny waist at center in BJ Finney, or a complete unknown 3rd round draft pick that you're hoping is going to come in and be the next coming of Marquise Pouncey. The biggest known you have right now, the biggest 2 knowns you have, are Chukwuka Okorafor, that's moving from the right side to the left side, and a guy that you love but's only going into his 2nd year in Kevin Dotson. So, my gosh, this is a big wish and a hope, and just hope you catch lightning in a bottle, because if not, this sets things back. But my question to you both, would have you rather you find out that David DeCastro's injured and be a question mark, and find out by week 6 that, he's not coming back this season whatsoever because of surgery, or pick up the pieces now?
I mean, financially, yeah, I will. Financially, I think they had to make this move now.
Yeah.
It saved them over $8 million. They needed that money to not only sign Trey Turner, but maybe if they save enough, they'll be able to actually sign some other players if they're looking at anybody. Maybe someone like Malik Hooker, who they met with. I'm not sure. I just think that it's you could have been patient, but I think DeCastro, like you said, I think it was amicable on both sides. He understood the situation. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really glad it's now, because the worst would have been training camp. Yeah. If you talk about then being on the PUP list or IR or everything, and then you're eating that entire I mean, he was the 4th highest salary cap going into the season at the moment he was released. So, I mean, it was $14 million, and it's still almost $6 million in debt. Well, I don't think it was almost 6, but it was over $5 million. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head in dead money. So 5.5. There you go. But then at least you have some resources to do something else. So that would have been the absolute worst case scenario, was having it even going halfway to training camp, let alone week 6. If David DeCastro was not going to be, I mean, take it to the next step. What if David DeCastro came back and and it wasn't that he was 6 weeks in and he was able to play, and this might have been what bad meant in the first place. What if he was just such a shell of his former self because of the injury so much that you're just like, we can't even put this guy on the field. He's got to go to a reserve role. I mean, that would have been tragic. I would have much rather it happened now for the Steelers' sake, and hopefully even for DeCastro's sake, because the last thing you wanted to do is see him struggle even more than what he did at the end of last year.
Like you said, Dave, this reeked of them setting up a retirement announcement. And when was the last time the Steelers released a player and then put a tweet out with a picture of DeCastro or the player and said, "Thank you for your 9 years of service"? Like, when was that ever happened? Maybe it did. I don't remember it. I'll put it that way. And we have to pay pretty close attention to these silly things. So the Steelers do have options. I want to make this very clear. They do have options at guard. on their roster currently, if you think about it, depends on who wins the center job. Let's say Kendrick Green wins at center, then BJ Finney would then be an option at guard. JC Hassenauer can also play guard. Rashad Coward can play guard. And now, clearly, Trey Turner and we know Kevin Dotson are other guards on the roster. Likewise, if BJ Finney wins the job, well, then Kendrick Green can play guard. He played more guard than he did center at Illinois his senior year. So they do have options. Can I
ask a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
Here's the question. If Kendrick Green shows that he's starter ready, where would you prefer him start?
At guard or center?
Yeah. What I'm saying is, what if he proves that he's at a level that he's ready to be a starter at the beginning of the season, where would you rather have him starting?
Go ahead, Brian. What do you think?
I love what Dave's saying here. He's absolutely correct. If Kendrick Green is starter ready, you put him at center and you start his career now, and you start the future now, and you put Finney at guard where he's done okay for you at guard before. In fact, I think he's been better at guard than he has been at center his history with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you're probably better off there.
I agree with Brian. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Let me ask you all this question before we move on from the news of David DeCastro and Trey Turner. With what has happened and transpired on Thursday, does it change your outlook on the 2021 season at all? Dave, Brian, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, slightly. Let's just say that, because I'm going to go back. I'm the guy that talks about 2008 all the time. And that was not their best offensive line in history. Probably one of their worst offensive lines, especially for a playoff or a championship team. It was their worst championship offensive line or a playoff offensive line. It was not good. And they had a lot of patchwork. They had a lot of moving around. There's a lot of ifs here. So I think there's going to be some guys that are going to pay off. I'm a Banner guy. I really like Banner. I like what he does with the run. I feel that he can protect the quarterback as well. But on the right side, he's a tackle that's going to help you more with the run. I think they're going to find some magic at center in Kendrick Green. And that's what we're hoping on. So if you get somebody good in Kendrick Green and that works, and then you get what you got and more from Kevin Dotson, then you're on your way. This Trey Turner signing, this could be better than it is bad. In fact, I'm going to predict that this is, if he works out, awesome. If he doesn't, you have what you had with DeCastro. You're looking at putting someone else in there. So there's more upside than downside in this move right now to me. So I'm worried, yes. And I'm not a pessimistic Steeler fan. I've never been. I'm always the bright side guy. But with that being said, we were pinning our hopes and dreams for the running game and the offensive line on a healthy David DeCastro, and it's gone. So now we've got to move forward and pin our hopes and dreams on Trey Turner being healthy and being good and other guys stepping up.
All right, Dave, what about you? Has your outlook changed after what's happened on Thursday?
Now, it's interesting because I'm the one who talked about the different types of fans earlier in the week, and that was quite interesting. But I always relate to the optimistic fan and the optimistic fan of any NFL team. And I'm sorry, I don't care how bad your team was the year before. You should have that. You should have high expectations going into the next year. It is a professional sports business. It's not like MLB where there's no salary cap and you know that you're done before the first pitch is thrown. This is the NFL, and what do you know? Different teams can do different things. You get lightning in a bottle with the right coach and the right players, and you could make a massive turnaround in 1 year. And if your team was terrible the year before, you should hope that they can find a way to turn it around and play above what their expected level the next year. And that's what I'm always going to do. So I still have expectations for this team, but it really, I think what changed more than anything is how much I thought things were going to center around the offensive line. That's just now even greater. That I thought that the quote unquote wild card, remember I messed up what a wild card was last week. So we'll say, I'll get it right this week. What the wild card was going into the season was the offensive line. I now think it's an even bigger wild card. But did you guys listen to Stat Geek this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. What really makes successful, real Super Bowl teams for the Steelers? It's not their offense.
No, it's a defense.
It's their defense. So I would be much more concerned if you were dealing with something like this on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, that was just thrown more into my face when I had to break down that question. If you haven't listened to it, make sure you go back and listen to it. That it's really about the defense. It always has been.
I do have to ask myself, what the heck is Ben Roethlisberger thinking? I mean, you went from your best friend in Marquise Pouncey. I'm still crazy. It's still crazy to me that Pouncey didn't return for this season, knowing Ben was going to be back. But he retires, and so Ben's like, "Oh, that's okay. I'll still come back." And then he watches Villanueva go to the Ravens. He watches now David DeCastro get released. I mean, he's probably like, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, just from 2018, that whole line is gone. It's gone. And it's insane to think about. My outlook hasn't really changed too much, but I just don't have any clue what Trey Turner brings to this team because I just don't know. And I'm not going to pretend that I know. And there's a lot of people on Twitter right now that are, oh, well, look at Trey Turner's PFF score. I don't care about that stuff, nor am I going to parrot it around and say, like, look at me, look at what I know. No.
It was really good before last year.
It was really good before last year. Yeah. So, and like Dave said, the wild card, it's the offensive line. And it's been the offensive line from the start. Now, I do want to leave this topic, but I want to give you all an opportunity to kind of, is there anything else you want to discuss about guard, about the offensive line, about Trey Turner, David DeCastro, anything? Brian, anything you want to add?
Yeah, how's Ramon Foster looking these days? No, seriously. I want to wrap up the Trey Turner thing with one comment. They're better off with the idea of Trey Turner and the presence of Trey Turner than they aren't.
Okay. Dave, what about you? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, Bryan kind of summed it up. I mean, the Steelers' offensive line took a hit this afternoon. They got a bounce back. We don't know if the bounce back comes back up to what the hit that they took. That's what time will tell. But at least they didn't sit back and say, "Oh, next man up, we'll roll with what we got." They went out and proactively tried to do something.
Speaking of Ramon Foster, if you actually follow him on Twitter, it was probably towards maybe a month after the Steelers season ended, after the playoff loss. And he tweeted a photo that the Steelers sent him all of the items from his locker. He said, "I guess it's really over." They kept it for an entire season thinking maybe he'll come back. And if he does, we'll have he had Tennessee flip-flops in there. They put his helmet in there, all this. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And he said that, "I guess it's over." So he was done anyway. All right. So we're gonna take a break. There was other news that did happen on Thursday that we have to get to. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, you don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. If you're listening on the audio side, jump over to part 2 to catch the other news that took place on Thursday morning. I'm sorry. Yeah, Thursday morning. I'm nuts. Be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman with Dave Schofield and Bryan Anthony Davis. We've had a lot to talk about so far this podcast. We talked about Trey Turner and David DeCastro being released, the entire first part. So in case you stumbled upon part 2 first, go back and listen to part 1, then come back for part 2. But the other news that took place on Thursday morning was the news that the Pittsburgh Steelers, for the second straight season, will not be going to St. Vincent College in Latrobe. I thought, and I told Dave this on our Slack channel, that it was a genius move by the Steelers. A genius move. And I'll tell you why. Because Bert Lawton, the director of public relations for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was the one that sent out a statement saying that the Steelers put out a plan to the National Football League The NFL reviewed it and said, nope, can't happen. And so they said, basically, it's like the Steelers are going, well, we tried, and we're back in Pittsburgh. And then when they say back in Pittsburgh, it's important to know that there will be some practices at Heinz Field, some which they're going to allow fans. And then other practices will be at the team facility, which obviously there are no fans. I want to get, before we talk about logistics here, your take on the Steelers not getting back to Latrobe. And does it even matter? Bryan, we'll start with you.
It does not matter whatsoever if you're worried about the Steelers' record in 2021. Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is to those folks. It matters to Dave's brother, Rich, who was hoping to take Kyle and a buddy and go to training camp. It matters to the fans that wanted to get that experience, because that is a great experience. I remember going there in 1980, getting autographs. Unfortunately, one of them was Cliff Stout and Mark Malone. But, I remember going there with my family and having the stuff there and seeing those guys walk out and them being larger than life. That's the great experience. But if you're worried about the team, then you don't worry about the fans that get there that are going to miss that for another year. That's what you don't worry about. And the scheme of the team, that's all I care about. So if they have to practice in Pittsburgh, if they have to practice in like the banquet room of a Ramada, I'm fine as long as they get this together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they're still going to have camp. It's just not going to be what we are used to. Dave, what are your thoughts on the Steelers not going back to Latrobe?
Yeah, I understand what Bryan's saying, that it doesn't matter to the team. It really does matter to the fan base, and which is a whole lot bigger than the team, if you know what I mean. I mean, do these guys really want to have to go and share a dorm room with a teammate for a month and be away from their families and everything? Especially the veteran guys. Rookies are probably just like, bring it. That's fine. I don't have to. Maybe not. But
yeah, they just left dorms.
Yeah, that's the thing. So when you brought up such a good point though, Jeff, that the way they spun it and the NFL won't let us go. And Dallas got approved to go to Oxnard, California. The Chiefs were approved to go to some college in Missouri. Yeah, I had to say Missouri. You're not from Missouri. I don't know if you know that from How I Met Your Mother or not, but I had to do that. You kind of wonder, what did the Steelers do to get denied? And did they almost do it on purpose? Meaning, did they say, if we can't get to Latrobe in this fashion, then we don't want to be there? So what was more important, getting to Latrobe at all or getting to Latrobe the way they wanted it to be? Because something that I don't know a lot of people if they knew this or not, but something from the memos and all these crazy things that have been coming out by the NFL when it comes to COVID protocols is no interaction with fans during training camp because of COVID protocols. Even though today it was reported that the Steelers were over the 85% vaccination rate and what that's going to mean and everything, still didn't matter to that. If they didn't put a plan in place that was going to keep fans from being right there with the players to have that interaction, it was probably going to be shot down. And maybe they specifically didn't put that in there because they hoped that who knows, maybe when they applied, they didn't even know that was a thing, So we really don't know, but it was basically what the Steelers wanted is what the NFL said no to, and we don't know what the specific thing is.
The one thing I want to talk about, which has nothing to do with protocols or percentages or anything like that, is we've heard, and this goes back to Cowher, how much the Steelers value. Oh my gosh, we value that month and in the dorms and the month that they are just together all the time. And it's just so great and all this stuff. And then when Art Rooney II after the season came out and said, if we're not going to have fans there, we're not going. And then I all of a sudden thought to myself, you all are just blowing smoke. Because if it mattered, it was so great to be there for a month in the dorm rooms, you'd go even if there weren't fans. And the NFL would allow you to do it. They'd say, sure, you're not going to have fans? You can go. You can go to St. Vincent College. Go for it. Stay in the dorms. We don't care. But that, to me, it was just like, okay, just say you're going to stay in Pittsburgh. That's it for me. Just be honest. Hey, we want to have the fans there. We're not sure if it's going to work. We're aiming for next year, 2022. But don't tell me how great everything is and you just value that time with the team and the bonding and all this rah-rah bull crap. And just to find out that, you don't really care. You don't care. The players don't care. When that went out on Instagram and all their social media platforms, Bert Lawton's quote, Juju Smith-Schuster, Eric Ebron, all these players are like, yeah, they were pumped. They don't want to go there. They don't want to, like Dave said, or it might have been Bryan. They're missing their families. They're going to be sleeping in their own beds now. Give me a break. I'm sick and tired of the extra talk. We'll put it that way. Go ahead, Dave. It's like you have something to say.
Oh, yeah, because we also have to remember it could be a factor that we don't even think about. Okay, it could be someone mentioned in the live chat that maybe the vaccination rates aren't high enough in whatever county it is that Latrobe is in. I can't remember. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Well, people from all over that area go. It's not just from that
exactly.
county.
Exactly. So that shouldn't matter. It could be based on other things scheduled at St. Vincent College at that time.
Could be.
You know what I'm saying? It could have even been that kind of factor. Oh, well, you're not going to have the entire facility to just the Steelers. Well, then we can't do that. I'm not saying there was or there wasn't. There could be these outside circumstances that we can't even think of that would have ultimately been the reason why they can't. And the thing is, the Steelers aren't telling us why, which makes me think more of that it's kind of what you were saying, Jeff, because if it was a specific reason like that, but then people would have said, well, why don't you fix that in order to make it happen? And I don't know that they can at this point. So it's a mystery.
What about you, Bryan? You want to say something?
I completely agree with Jeff Hartman. I completely disagree with Jeff Hartman. So, let me say,
I love it.
All right. Jeff is absolutely correct. This team does not want to be there. But you don't have to tell the fans that. You've got to keep that storybook of Latrobe because that's family tradition. You keep up family tradition and you say, oh, how much we love it. You don't want to tell your fans, we don't give a rat's ass about you. You don't want to say that. What you want to tell your fans is like, man, we value you. We wish you could be with you. But you know what? Inside, they're jumping up for joy. They're loving it because not only that, just the logistics of training camp at Latrobe, all the stuff that you've got to do with housing and meals and all of this, you don't have to do as much. There's so many things that you don't have to hire those extra people for. You don't have to worry about some things. You don't have to worry about somebody at the somebody getting out to the local Latrobe strip club. You don't have to worry about that.
There's a strip club in Latrobe.
I don't know. Is there?
Maybe there is. And they're trying to develop Dwayne Haskins, and therefore they don't want to go there.
Like, all right. We've got Dwayne. Dwayne's safe. So, I mean, but the thing about it, and you mentioned something with Juju and Ebron jumping for joy and all. I thought maybe Devin Bush was upset because he had that 4-letter word on Twitter, but I guess that was about DeCastro and not about Latrobe. I don't know. But you know what? They don't need to insult the fans by saying, hey, we don't want to be there. They need to do the things and talking about how great it was, because it would be a slap in the face of the memory of Dan Rooney if you said we hated being there. It would be a slap in the face of the fans if you did that. But I agree that they don't want to be there, that life's better for the Steelers if they're in their apartments, in their homes.
Yeah, I was one of those naive fans at a younger age. I was like, boy, it's great that the Steelers love it up there. I mean, it's just so awesome. And then you would see the players come into camp and they'd have their, Brett Keasel would roll up in a tractor and James Harrison drives a fire truck and Antonio Brown, Lord knows how he gets there. It all lost its luster when I found out that Antonio Brown never stayed on campus. He had a house that he would stay in that was just near the facility. And I think Roethlisberger,
I don't think it was never. I don't think he did as a rookie. You know what I mean? But
yeah. Well, when he became AB,
and
he started coming in,
never stayed.
Yeah, there you go.
Brown did. AB never did.
But it
Ronald
was
Ocean,
Mr. Big Chest.
What it is? No, it's just a situation. I was like, you know what? This is. I feel like it's all pomp and circumstance now. I wouldn't be shocked if they never go back. To be completely honest, I would not be shocked if they say, you know what, we like it. staying in Pittsburgh. We're not going back. And let me also say that they have not released the information on when they're going to practice at Heinz Field and when they're going to be at their facility, when there's going to be fans allowed. If they don't just let any fans just pack the house at Heinz Field, why? You're going to have a full at capacity for games. Why not get your staff in there and say, let's get ready for the preseason and let's get ready for the regular season and let's get used to this. And I'm sure that there's going to be little arrows that you have to follow and proper protocols on how you have to walk down the hallway and you have to, do a little jig to get a beer at the concession stand. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that you're going to have to do, but sorry. Might as well let them pack the house is what I'm saying. All right.
Sorry. Wait a second. Are you talking about Heinz Field or are you talking about the Beehive?
The Beehive, is that a strip club in Latrobe?
I'm getting called out by Jerry Aldeans because come on, Bad, you're from Johnstown. You've never been to the Beehive on the way to Latrobe, really?
Where is the Beehive?
I think it's on 30, isn't it? I can
is it in?
Or not.
Yeah.
I've never been to Latrobe. I don't know.
This is a 2 a.m. story, I feel like, in the making. The 2 a.m. Beehive visit. There's a lot of glitter exchange that night. We'll just put it that way. I want to get this on the screen before we lose it. Evgeny Crosby gives us $4.99 and gives us a chance to recalibrate. Says the real problem with the Steelers is coaching, being prepared, and getting ready for each individual opponent on the schedule. It always has been. I'm not going to disagree with you. We all lived through Randy Land, so yes, coaching matters. Oh man, the Beehive. Gosh, the Beehive. Oh man!
Oh, I've got some stories, but we can't do it now. That's an after party.
All right, so there you go. The Steelers are not coming back to Latrobe. The Beehive is safe for another summer, and we still don't know when they're going to even report. Do we, Dave? Did they ever say that?
Well, and I'm a little bit frustrated because everything that we've done with our countdown, we've based on it being July 21st because the NFL said that is when the Steelers and the Cowboys can report to training camp. Because they play in the Hall of Fame game. Apparently, the Cowboys aren't reporting on the 21st. They're going the 22nd. So, and I don't know if that's report or when you start practice. But now that they're at Heinz Field, there's not a difference. Because remember, you would report, but then practices didn't start till the next day. So we don't have a date. We know it's not before the 21st, but it should be somewhere close to that date if they want to be able to. I would rather them start sooner and then have days where they take time off. But that's just me.
It's the Beehive.
It's got a
awesome stuff. Awesome. Oh, he found
website.
a website. Oh my gosh. All right. What is it?
Can I bring this one up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you probably have a discount on draft beer if you bring your Steelers Bumblebee jersey to the Beehive.
Beehive Show Bar Adult in Delmont, PA. How about that?
Delmont. So, what are we talking about here, Brian? Like, they have is it just like a standard web page? I mean, I'm not asking for photos or anything like that.
Actually, they don't have. It's just like reviews and like Club Planet and venues.
What are the reviews?
I haven't clicked on it, but let's see. The Beehive Show Bar in Delmont. Strippers are the main attraction at Beehive Show Bar, located Rural Route 3, Box 265. A word of advice: don't get too touchy-feely. The girls don't like it. You'll get a bad rep and might even get tossed from the place. Show them a little love, and they'll show you the same.
Oh.
It's on William Penn Highway. I just found it on Google Maps.
And let us help plan your party at this venue, according to Club Planet.
Oh my gosh,
that's funny. I'm still trying
on the border of Delmont and Murraysville. So it's close to Murraysville. And this is great. It's Beehive Show Bar. It's an adult club / talent agency.
Oh, even better.
Oh, I've got more reviews.
So could we have a BTSC event there? Like, is that a central location that we could?
We could, but we gotta be careful because Robert N got a lap dance with Sapphire and she stole my phone.
I don't know if you can see it. There's the street view.
Oh,
It looks like a high. What are we talking about, Lance? Come on, bring it back. Hey, we said about bringing back the after party.
Well, there it is. Here it is.
I think we just kind of did. Unofficially, it's there.
But let me here. We have a tip here. Tom gives us $5. Tom here, he says, losing DeCastro hurts, but as long as the new group can get a push for Harris, we will be okay. Latrobe and the fans are the only ones sad about camp. Yeah, especially Beehive because they're losing a lot of business now and a lot less foot traffic.
Colbert's successor will be the talent scout from the awesome stuff. That's awesome.
That's where they're getting their next GM from.
Yes,
they're actually gonna hire the Beehive to find him.
We do have to say this that the Beehive is 14 miles from St. Vincent College, but only 22 minutes by car. So
how about which way by the way the crow flies? Hey, Jerry Cherry said he played 3 sets there on Tuesday, so I'm sure it's
Did Sapphire steal your phone?
Damn Sapphire.
Oh, you know what? Jerry Aldeans, thank you. I needed this. Having a bad day.
Okay.
I love it.
Oh, God.
Okay.
All right.
That was fun.
You know Tony's been to the Beehive. Defio has.
He probably has. Tom Muir gives us another $5. Says, guys, come on. We aren't the Washington football team. I get it.
I know.
All right. Do you have trivia, Dave?
Oh, you're ready for it? Yes.
Let's do it.
I have some trivia. This was something I was looking up for an article that I'm going to be putting out sometime in the next week. It depends. I mean, after all the breaking news today, I don't know when I'm going to get around to writing this kind of stuff again, but I had just done an article yesterday, which was very ironic that I said, no news is good news in the off season, but what would be good news? 1, reports of when training camp is. Well, we kind of got that today. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then 2 was finally getting Kendrick Green signed. And then 3 was signing another player. Well, we did today after losing another one. But when I was some of the comments from behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, they were saying, you're forgetting something. Signing TJ Watt to an extension. And I'm like, that's not going to happen between now and training camp. That's not when the Steelers do business. I went back and looked at all the Steelers transactions that they had on their website back to 2012. How many contract extensions do you think were signed by the Steelers? Meaning someone got a new deal. I'm not talking about signing their rookies or making basically a dash move, if you know what I mean. Someone that they already had on their team and they signed them to a new contract or an extension between minicamp and training camp over the last 9 years.
The last 9 years.
The last 9 seasons. How many times that they've done a deal during that time of the year?
And so you're saying this is not including if they were to just sign somebody during camp?
No, because training camp's already started by then. Okay. So that wouldn't be that kind of move.
I'm going to say 0.
And Bryan will say
0.
Okay, it's 1. But the question was, any idea who it was? One time in the last 9 years, they've actually done a contract extension between minicamp and training camp.
I'm going to guess Vince Williams. I don't know why that name is coming to mind, but I'm probably wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say Antonio Brown.
It was one Cameron Hayward, but not last year in 2015. Last year, Cam Hayward signed his deal, his extension on September 6th. that's when the Steelers are generally doing their extensions and things like that. And that's why I said one of the possibilities is the Steelers are thinking, oh, well, if we need to save some money, maybe we'll extend DeCastro. We'll do that closer to the start of the season. And then all of a sudden you find out, man, we might not even have him at all. So maybe they were needing to do something to save cap. I don't know. But for those of you that think, oh, well, maybe we'll get the TJ Watt mega deal or whatnot, this is not the time of year that the Steelers generally do business. So the fact that and I had this trivia looked up today before the DeCastro news. This had nothing to do with that. And then what do you know? What happens between minicamp and training camp? That happened. Now, Marquise Pouncey signed an extension 1 year, but it was right before mandatory minicamp. It was in June. But if you look at the Steelers transactions, there's many years they don't even have a transaction in June. And almost every transaction in July is like July 25th or later because they're already in training camp. It's crazy. Yeah. So this really is the downtime. So if you're looking for one of those contract extensions, now's really not the time. So sorry, that was kind of a little bit of weak trivia. I was going to try to dig deeper into it, but then all of a sudden I'm writing articles about David DeCastro and the salary cap and Trey Turner getting signed and all that other stuff. So that's the best I could do.
It's okay. Bryan, do you have trivia?
I do not. Oh. I cannot top that.
It was just, I'm sorry. We should not have this many breaking news stories on a Thursday in late June. This is not how Steelers football works.
The Steelers are doing the news dump thing, if you've noticed. Yeah. Trey Turner, when was that announced? Friday at 4:30.
Or 4:30 or 5.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then you have this move with DeCastro was late in the afternoon. They're doing the news dump, and I don't get it. They normally don't. They normally just make the announcement when it's time to make the announcement, but it is what it is. So what's up, Bryan?
No, I'm
okay.
I'm agreeing.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, it's been a good show so far. Let's finish up with some final thoughts. These tend to go a little bit long, so we'll give you plenty of time. Bryan, why don't you go ahead and start?
All right. This has been a day of crushing defeat for the fans that wanted to attend in Latrobe. It could be crushing for losing David DeCastro. It could be on the upside, and you should feel a little bit good about your organization being able to go ahead and bring somebody in to stop the bleeding right away and see how it works. So I'd like to bring up this quote right here. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and remember, it is what you make of it. And that is a man from Santa Cruz, California, John H. And that's his review from the Beehive. However, that review was from 2008. And 2008, the Steelers had a dilapidated offensive line, and they won the Super Bowl with the hardest schedule in the league. This year, the Steelers have the hardest schedule in the league. Drop that mic.
Good luck following that, Dave. Go ahead.
I have no hope. Bryan, how could you have something that good and not say, maybe I should save mine for last? Come on. That was kudos, my friend, because not only was that possibly maybe your shortest final thoughts ever, that was by far the most appropriate I think we've had on this show.
Let me say, I thought that the quote was going to be from Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell.
You were close. Missed it by that much.
That could have been Mr. Belding's alias, and he was just in the Beehive.
Another D. Haskins.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I guess I should say something. I guess I should say something. Okay. It is sad to lose David DeCastro. It is. But if you really want to be able to come back as a Steelers fan and say and take something that's not as disappointing, is that the DeCastro, the only way the Steelers were going to move on from DeCastro is if he was not what he was before. It's not that the Steelers are missing out on 2018 David DeCastro or something like that nature in 2021. You were probably looking at the 2020 version or worse. So therefore, yes, it's sad that he's not part of the team, but what you were really going to get apparently was not going to be much. So I wish I could sum this up with yet another quote from a review from the Beehive, but I don't have one that's as appropriate as what Bryan had.
Oh, Tom Muir gives us $5, says 2 a.m. wisdom from the Beehive. I bet there's a lot of 2 a.m. wisdom from the Beehive, to be honest with you. Andrew Welborn, Justin, the Beehive owner, wants to sign a contract to advertise with BTSC next week. All three guys will have Beehive haircuts. What does it even look like? I don't have enough hair to have any type of haircut.
I can pull that off.
I got nothing.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, make sure that wherever you get your podcasts, tune in to Behind the Steel Curtain. So search Behind the Steel Curtain or Steelers. You'll find us. That way you can listen to Tales from 2 a.m. if you don't catch it on YouTube, because I think that might be sponsored by the Beehive starting this Sunday with Bryan. He'll have a girl on every week as a highlighted artist of the week.
They'll be wearing my jerseys.
And I was gonna say, Bryan will have to get a new phone every Monday morning.
This is Bryan's burner phone, number one.
Damn it, Sapphire got me again.
Oh goodness! Every now and then we need a laugh. Hopefully, this provided you with that laugh. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Steelers Preview. We'll be back next Thursday. Hopefully, back to our regular scheduled time. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
From the Beehive. We'll see you live on location. We'll see you next week. Take it easy.